forgot. Damn it. First Amendment rights violation. How so? You're going to have to explain that one. What's a First Amendment rights violation? Hey, Millie, my afternoon is going terribly. Dialysis aggravated a muscle ache in my back, my lower back down by my hip, and it is pissing me off. Hey, Swan Soda, my back is killing me, like really bad. I'm not doing the greatest, Meta, but I'm doing the best I can. My last three, all of my less than 60 seconds. Provide evidence for the billions of missing links that have never been. You are a missing link, Sprong. Every single living thing is a link in the evolutionary chain. And also, even if you disproved evolution, you wouldn't prove that your God exists. Evolution is not the linchpin you think it is. If tomorrow you found groundbreaking information that completely flipped all of science upside down on its head, you still wouldn't have proven God. Disproving evolution does not prove your case. Are you a wannabe biker? Yep, absolutely 100% a wannabe. That's what I am. You hit it. You hit the nail spot on there, bud. Not sure how you are a wannabe biker. Like, how do you do that? Like, if you ride motorcycles, then you're a biker, right? Like, there's no wannabe there. You have no high ground. That's the point. Yes, I do. I absolutely have high ground. You know what it is? You have no evidence for your God. That's the high ground I stand on. Yeah. And as far as evolution goes, it impacts your everyday life. Oil, fossil industry, fucking medical industry, all of, like, food industry, all of that shit understands evolution at a genetic level. Just because you don't understand it, I used to own a bike. I actually, because of the economy last year, I had to sell it. But I very much have owned bikes. 3 separate Harley Davidsons and a Yamaha Bobber when I was younger. Yeah, I've owned plenty of bikes. And I would own one right now if I had the money, because I don't like riding in a cage. Riding motorcycles, the happiest I've ever been in my entire life. And a belief in a God has nothing to do with riding motorcycle. Wait a second. I thought God's punishment was hell. I didn't realize God was punishing people during life. Like, I thought he handed this world over to Satan and God didn't do anything in it until the second coming of Christ. Do you understand your own theology? I don't know that you do. I believe in humanism. Yeah, I'm on TikTok talking about whether or not a God exists. We all have hobbies, you know. My entire personality isn't riding a Harley Davidson. I do other things. Do I have a mind? I'm fairly certain I do. I wouldn't be here doing what I'm doing right now if I didn't. I am accepting guest requests, so if you want to jump in and have a conversation, Oh, dead. Imagine if I actually gave a fuck about your opinion. I don't care what you think. Like, at all. Irrelevant. Hey, Sour Bites. Get a job. I'm on dialysis for kidney failure, Gil. What job do you think I'm capable of doing? I'd love to know. I mean, I had dialysis this morning. I have dialysis again tomorrow morning. You believe in humanism, then you believe in God because he created us. No, I don't believe in a God. Humanism has nothing to do with a God. Do you understand the definition of the word humanism? Ladies and gentlemen in the comment section, a couple of things I want you to think about. Number one, Mark Twain is quoted as saying, "It is better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt." If you don't understand what that means, I'm going to try to explain it to you. I am not a fucking rocket scientist. So, because I don't know anything about rocket science, I'm not going to talk about rocket science. I'm not going to try to convince you that this fuel mixture and this fuel mixture add for the best thrust. Because I don't fucking know anything about rocket science. The point here is if you don't know anything about a given topic or subject, it might be best if you don't talk about it because you're just going to look foolish. And there's a thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Highly recommend you read the study on that. Dunning-Kruger. Provide evidence that God created anything, that a God even exists. You can say it until you're blue in the face. You can continue to repeat it in the comment section. It doesn't mean anything until you provide actual evidence that your claim is true. Why don't I believe there's a God? Lack of evidence. No, I am here because my parents had sex. That's why I'm here. There's no evidence of a God in my creation. Everything about pregnancy can be tracked. We know how pregnancy works. It's not magic. Ugh. No, sorry, Penny, we are not all gods. I don't believe that either. We are human beings. Thank you, Darkseid. This is very sweet of you to say. I don't need evidence against it, Belle. That's not how this works. I want you to prove to me that there isn't a teapot orbiting Mars. Can you do that? Can you prove to me that there isn't a teapot orbiting Mars? And for that matter, can you prove to me that Odin and Freya and Ra and Dionysus and Thor aren't real? Can you prove to me that all the other gods aren't real? No, you can't, because that's not how logic works. You can't disprove a negative like that, or you can't prove a negative. No, Jesus was not an actual person. I mean, you can make that claim all you want, but there's no evidence to support it. I disagree with some of the biblical scholars that make that assertion. I do not find the evidence that an actual Jesus existed to be convincing. Jesus did not lead by example. Half of what Jesus said was disgusting and gross, and the other half of the moral proclamations he made didn't come from him. He was recalling stories of other people's behavior. Nothing Jesus did was innately moral, not by today's standard. I don't believe that Jesus literally existed. There's no evidence of it. None. Zero. Zilch. I am accepting guest requests if somebody wants to jump in the box. Aw, thank you. I hope I'm bringing something new to it, Alan. I appreciate the support. I believe I came from goo that appeared from nowhere. When did I say that? Why are you asserting what I believe? Why are you asserting without me telling you what I believe? When did I ever say everything came from nothing? No scientist has ever said that. Why are you saying it? That's a Christian argument. There was a magical God that always existed, and he poofed everything into existence from nothing. That is a Christian argument. That is not a scientific argument. I don't care what your friend's grandpa saw. I don't care. Personal experience is not evidence. Come on, one bit of insight on the teachings of Jesus. If you love your mother, your father, your son, or your daughter more than you love the Lord, then you are not worthy of him. God puts himself above your family. No, disagree. I hardcore disagree. And with the advent of Jesus in the Christian religion, that's when hell started to appear. Hell did not exist in the Old Testament. It didn't. When you died, you died. That was the end of it. Hell didn't start existing until the New Testament, and honestly, a few centuries after the New Testament was even completed. Hell is not part of the original Christian doctrine. Hell is a fear tactic designed to emotionally manipulate people, to force them into the religion. Yeah, would I go back to truck driving if I had the chance? You bet your ass I would. I'd rather be driving truck than fucking sitting here on TikTok. I love having these conversations, I really do. But I liked my job, the last job I had working as a truck driver. I liked it. It was my favorite thing. So I mean, like, I hauled asphalt and I made good money doing it. Belly dump. Hooyah! Although on occasion we had to run side dump when we were cleaning out clay, and that sucked. That's always a miserable fucking shit job. Clay is nasty. Oh, you're going to hate your life even more when you get put in the ground. Don't believe in hell. And if your God would torture me for eternity for not believing in him, there's nothing I can do about it. Okay. I guess. I mean, that'll suck. But it just proves that your God is not a moral, loving character. He's not benevolent. And at this point, Christians don't even believe in hell the way it's like it would have originally been believed in. I mean, you guys use it for revenge. You don't believe what I believe? Well, you're going to burn in hell. That's all you get. Like, that's all you have. You can threaten people with that and think that it's going to convince anybody, and it won't. It won't convince anybody. Threatening people with eternal torment is not how you convince people that your religion is true. In fact, that has the exact opposite effect. No, he can't heal me. If Christians could heal people, we wouldn't need hospitals or medical professionals. So, no, that's not a real thing. Faith healers work in hospitals at the same rate psychics win the lottery. It's not a real thing. Progression of technology and science? No, I mean, how do you define a god? Like, what is the definition of a god? I don't think humans are anywhere close. We still can't even beat our own instincts. We can't rise above our own emotional inequities. Our entire American society is built to alleviate 99% of the needs of the 1%. We are dumb as a species. Like, we're dumb. We're slow to learn. Like, for instance, let's imagine, and this is just an example, let's imagine that somebody invented wormhole technology. And you could walk through a doorway in Phoenix, Arizona, and be in Paris, France, just walking through the door, right? Like, this technology is completely stable. It's cheap and easy to make. It doesn't use a lot of energy. And you can walk through this doorway and be anywhere in the world. That technology would never come to market. And the reason it would never come to market, the reason it would never be mass produced, is because it would literally decimate the world economy. Because of how our economies are built, we would never let that, they would never let that come to market. Because it would kill transportation, flying, airlines, trains, automobiles. It would kill all transportation. It would kill the big rig companies, the train companies. It would literally devastate the entire world's economy. So because of how our economy is built, we will never bring those types of advanced technologies to fruition. We hamper ourselves. Everything you see that humans have made is built by the cheapest bidder. Your laptop, your phone, your car, everything is built by the cheapest bidder. Because if we actually built things to last, nobody would need to buy them constantly. So we build things to fail so that people continue to have to buy things. Planned obsolescence. Everything that's built is planned to go obsolete. Because if it lasts forever, you don't need to buy more. CERN is not doing anything other than crashing particles, Penny. If you're going to sit in my live and regurgitate conspiracy theories, I'd rather you didn't. I actually have acquaintances or people that follow me, who I follow here on TikTok, who have worked at CERN. It is not the gateway to hell and all the other nonsense that people make up with that kind of stuff. It's science that most people don't understand, and because they don't understand it, they just make up some supernatural bullshit about it being the gateway to hell or some other nonsense. That's not what it is. It's literally them trying to understand the nature of reality. They are crashing atoms together. Like, these things are so small that when they actually explode with a shit ton of energy, mind you, it's no bigger than a firecracker. Like, it's really a tiny, tiny bitch-ass explosion. So, do you believe that the best ideas are difficult to get credit for? Not anymore. I think science has progressed enough that better ideas are going to get credit a lot easier. You go back in time, and scientific discoveries there was a huge bias, right? A huge prejudice within the scientific community. Men wouldn't let women participate, and there was a lot of racism in prior parts of our society, and science wasn't above that either. So nowadays, it'd probably be easier to get your name recognized for major discoveries than it would have been, say, 50 to 100 or more years ago. Like, for instance, it was a woman that discovered tectonic plate movements. Well, she didn't discover it. She rediscovered it. There was another scientist who hypothesized it, and then after her and a colleague of hers mapped the sea floor, she was the one that did the drawing and mapped out the sonar information that they had available, and she found the rift, and they discovered that continental drift is a real thing. The woman who discovered X-rays, Marie Curie, I think is her name. I'm not 100% sure. Like, there's so many women in science that you've never heard of. It was an entire woman's team that mapped the stars for like. They started mapping the stars. It was back in like the 1920s and 30s. They were called calculators. I can't remember whose lab it was. It was some guy, but he had like 30 women working. They would take pictures of the stars on long exposure sheets, and then the women would categorize. It was actually a woman that built the entire category system for understanding what stars are made of. So she categorized all the different types of stars that they discovered. She found out, or she discovered it wasn't her that discovered it. It was another female scientist that worked under her that discovered the spectrum. So, like when you set a triangular crystal in sunlight, it bends and scatters the light waves, right? So you have the rainbow. That is the scattered light from the star being slowed down through the prism. That's how you can tell what the star is made of, what its base elements are, because base elements will block certain light. So if you look at that rainbow through a, not like maybe a magnifying glass or, I can't remember what tool they would use to do it. Not a spectrometer. Fuck, I can't remember what tool it was. But when you did it, it'd leave black lines. It'll leave black lines inside of that rainbow. When you look at the rainbow really close, it'll leave black lines. And those black lines are chemical signatures. Light being absorbed by specific chemical elements. And that tells you what a star is made out of. I think they call it a spectrograph now. I'm not 100% sure. Hard to remember everything. Yes, that is what Satanism says. I mean, depending on, there's a lot of different personal interpretations of Satanism, but if you look at both the Satanic Temple and the Satanic Church, it's about respecting others as you would respect yourself. Because if you disrespect others, you're disrespecting yourself. I am knowledgeable, not as smart as I'd like to be. Trust me, I wish I was smarter than I am. You have a question, Bryce. Oh, thank you, Chaotic Wind. You're super sweet. I am an agnostic atheist, but I'm also what's known as an anti-theist. I think religion shouldn't be an institution that's protected under any... it shouldn't be a protected class, and it should be a private thing that you do in the, your own home or your own church, separate from government and school. I'm mostly anti-religion. I will definitely keep doing what I'm doing. I'm hoping more people come in. I'm not really busy. I got 36 people in here. Shit, this morning at like 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I had like 300 people in here. Why aren't churches taxed in the first place? That's $1 million fucking question I desperately want the answer to, because that shit pisses me off. Satanism is just ridiculous. Jared, if you don't know anything about Satanism, shh. I spoke earlier in this live about Mark Twain, who had a quote It is better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. If you don't know anything about a given topic or subject, Jared, don't talk about it. If you haven't bothered to go to the Satanic Temple website and read the About Us portion or read the 7 fundamental tenets and try to understand what the Satanic Temple is, then do not talk about it because you just look foolish. True, Satanism is more of a counter to, like Christian tyranny, but at the same time, there are people who find comfort within the Satanic Temple and the Satanism as a religion. So it's not a direct copy, Jared. You don't know anything about it. How are you making affirmative fucking statements about something you don't know anything about? Like, you're the guy, dude. I swear you're the guy. If nobody taught you mathematics, you would swear up and down you knew everything about mathematics. Like, you're that guy. You don't know anything about it, and yet you're still talking about it as if you do. You don't. Stop. You look ridiculous. If you want to go learn about it, then go learn about it and then talk about it. But no. The Satanic Temple is not a copy of fucking Christianity, not even by a long shot. Well, yeah, you can't do thy will. What the fuck are you talking about? No, you don't have free choice, Jared. You don't. You may think you do, but you don't. That's not how the human brain works. Your brain is deterministic. Your entire personality, your likes and dislikes were decided the moment you started developing in the womb. You have no choice as to who you are as a person. Zero. You don't get to choose your personality. You don't get to choose what food you like. None of that shit. It's already decided for you, my friend. Sorry. It's just the way it is. Your genetics and your environment make up your personality. Not you. You're stuck with it. Food isn't given. It's worked for. People work to make food. It's not given. And nearly all the food you eat today, it was built by science. Like the banana, naturally forming bananas in nature are inedible by humans. The yellow banana that you know about in the grocery store, that is a genetically modified organism. Crossbreeding. We figured out how to crossbreed different plants. Oh, we do have guest requests. All right. I'm sorry about that, guys. Really quick, we're going to go in order. Yeah, we can bring on Eli. Let's talk politics.
Yo, Ethan, how you been?
How's it going, Eli?
Good, how you been? I haven't seen you in a minute.
I was banned for a week. My back is lit today. Oh, not happy. So, politics, what's up? You're muted. I can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah, you would like evidence that God exists, and I can work through a number of bits of evidence. Yeah.
Shoot.
Cool. But first, I want to know what do you agree exists. For example, do personality traits exist? Does love exist? That sort of thing.
Love is a chemical mixture of oxytocin and dopamine in your brain.
Okay.
It doesn't exist.
Is it real?
Love does not exist absent a human brain.
Okay. So for sure. So the question you're asking is, can I prove that God exists absent of human minds?
Either way, what does God have to do with love?
Oh, if you look at fMRI studies, you can see that there are religious ecstatic experiences that people have
Yeah,
across
they
cultures.
and when you look at that same information under an MRI, it looks like drug addiction.
Well,
The same parts of the brain, the
you
same
didn't
parts of
ask
the
if
brain that
God
are
was a
active.
good thing or a
Hold on,
bad thing. You asked for evidence if God
hold on.
exists.
The same part of the brain that is active during religious experiences is the same part of the brain that is affected by drugs and alcohol. That's not an argument. That's just it's proving the delusion.
Well, the question wasn't, is it a delusion or is it good or bad? The question was, is there something that people are talking about when they talk about God that is real?
The answer is no.
Except that you agree that there is a common human experience that spirituality creates that activates, as you say, the addiction portion of the mind.
Yeah, there's
So that is real to
yes,
people, I think,
there is something
experiencing it.
transcendental. There is something transcendental about the human mind. We don't understand everything about it yet, but to make a logical leap from something about something we don't understand and call it God is intellectually dishonest and
For
uninformed.
sure, especially. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's absolutely the case. Obviously, we can't go from something we don't know to something to say that we do know. That
Right.
would be dishonest. But what? But as I said previously, there is an experience that we can see across studies in people's minds that they have
Okay.
a
So then,
shared
which God?
experience.
Which God is the right God? If we're going to go off based off people's personal experience and their faith,
Oh, none
well,
of them, obviously.
you got about 45,000 different denominations of Christianity to sift through before you even get to
Hmm.
Islam.
Yeah, it's none of them, right? It's obviously none of them because all of these different groups of people with different faiths are having the same human experience. So while there is something that people are pointing to when they say God, and it's something that many people see as beneficial for them, it isn't necessarily going to be anyone's story that got them to that experience, right?
I have spiritual experiences riding a Harley Davidson. My favorite place,
That's awesome.
my happiest place, the most happiest I've ever been in my life is on a motorcycle.
Hmm.
People's
And
experiences do not equate to God.
well, it's definitely the real thing that people are pointing at when they
It's
talk
just
about God, right?
it's just the chemical reactions in your brain. That's all it is. It's still
Well,
nothing more than naturalism.
is there anything that you can prove exists that isn't just something that you've observed with your mind?
You can't disprove
Hmm.
a negative. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you can't prove that there isn't a teapot floating around Mars.
Sure,
And
sure.
like that's the point. The burden of proof falls on the people making the claim, the positive claim.
Hmm.
If I was to sit here and say there absolutely is no God, then I would be responsible for that burden of proof. I'm an agnostic atheist. I don't know if there's a God, and I'm not convinced that there is one due to insufficient evidence. But the
Right.
people, like in the comment section, who are making the claim there absolutely is a God, well, they need to provide evidence for that claim. I'm not going to be convinced just because they said so or just because they threatened me with hell.
But you've experienced being on a Harley, which I assume I've never been on a motorcycle, is very similar to going to the opera and listening to that beautiful music.
Yes, it can be an emotional experience sometimes. I've
Yeah.
actually I've listened to opera music and felt that same
Yeah.
emotional experience.
Yeah. So that thing that people are pointing to in their community is real, and we can see it between people, right? In the same
An
way we can see it.
emotion, it's an emotional experience.
Yes.
It doesn't make it a real tangible thing. You're talking about metaphysics.
Well, that's why I asked if love is real. But yes, I
It
am
is to
talking.
us,
Mhm.
but it
I
is
am.
not to the universe. The universe doesn't give a fuck about love
Oh
or
well, I
anger
think you
or resentment. The universe, as far
and
as
the
we know,
human
does not
experience
experience
is
emotion.
like everything is already determined. None of us have anything
Yeah,
that we can do to make it change at a
correct.
physics level, right? It's all going to
Right.
burn out, man. The star's going to collapse back in on itself. It would seem to me that what we have left are the facts that we can't see what those causal determinants are, and instead have to
Yes.
live in a world of meaning. And thus, the things that matter most to us are those for which we can never have a physical
Well,
observation
humans are
do
short-sighted
exist in
because we
that
live short
meaningful
lives.
state.
Humans are short-sighted because we live short lives. If we lived longer, we would probably be a little bit more insightful about things. We can only comment and talk about our personal experience collectively in society and as we are alive. But you notice that people don't collectively talk about what's possible 50 to 100 years from now. Ooh, we lost him. So I'll finish my thought. You don't know where we will be technologically 50 to 100 years from now. So to make assumptions about what we know now versus what we might know in the future, that just doesn't track either. There may very well be a God. We have no idea. There may very well, and we might discover that God. Who knows? But for the time being, there is no evidence that points to a God. When we have new information, then we will know, but we don't. So it's a waste of energy. What's up, Eli?
Not much. I was just listening.
All right, we'll bring politics back on briefly. I want to get through the guest requests. What's up, man?
Sorry about that.
Lost you for a second.
Yeah, there was some sort of glitch. I need a better phone. To your point, obviously, you're right. We cannot know these things, but we can't know in the future what we will be able to know. But for right now, you and I think, exist in a world where we make meaning of the world. And if that's the question, that's what matters in people's lives. Very rarely do people really care all that much about the fact that their world is physiologically predetermined.
With the exceptions that Christians can't let people fucking be. I host these conversations to bring awareness to the fact that Christians cannot leave people alone. There's what's known as the Seven Mountains Mandate, the Heritage Heritage Foundation, the there's like a dozen or more of these underground Christian organizations that are influencing politics and education, and they are forcing people to live their lives under basically Christian totalitarianism.
I agree with this point, and it's a problem.
I wouldn't be here doing this if Christians minded their business.
I don't think this guy is Christian. I think he's just a theist.
I am a Christian, but I have a counterpoint to make here. But first, I want to sympathize with and agree with the right points that are being made on your side before I make my counterpoint, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So first, I want to say, yeah, absolutely. I've spent with my friend maybe 2 years in VR talking to people, writing down their claims. Almost all of them on the right wing, almost every one of them we look up and it's just factually not true. And I submitted it to an analysis of like patterns, and it came back and I found the Seven Mountains Mandate from that pattern of data. They're just being propagandized. Right? They're just being propagandized into a long-term strategy to create Christian fascism in the United States. So,
correct. And it started back in the 1960s with Falwell, and then the Reagan administration put it into high gear.
Yeah. So, and that's been a long-term strategy, and I don't want to at all dismiss or reduce that. However, two things. First, I go to a fantastic church. And it is Evangelical Lutheran Church. We affirm and celebrate people in their sexual orientation and gender diversity. We pray to ask God to help us lay down our implicit biases, right? And so that.
So you have invented an entirely new religion that is Christian light, but not really Christian.
Well, this is the second point I was going to make.
I say this. Hold on. I say this.
No, please go ahead.
Because if you weigh where you sit with your religion and where Christianity has always sat in and of itself, these are not equal. For 2,000 years, Christianity has been colonizing, genociding, murdering, raping, pillaging, tribalizing. It has never, ever, ever been the force for good that you're trying to turn it into. And the scripture is pretty clear about that kind of stuff, where God in the Bible indiscriminately murders children repeatedly. condoning things like rape, child sex trafficking, genocide, war, just in general unkindness and anger and resentfulness that comes from the Christian God in the Bible is ridiculous.
Okay.
And at no period in time has Christianity been a force for good. So you have taken the bits and pieces that you like from this religion and created an entirely new one that is not, it's not even a shadow of its former self.
So this comes to my second point, and I don't know if you follow Dan McClellan. He's a fantastic scholar,
I
studies the
absolutely
Bible.
love Dan McClellan. He's one of
Yeah,
my favorite educators.
yeah. I think that to what he says very often, there's no one God of the Bible. There's no one voice that the Bible offers,
True,
and
but it's also
everyone.
like he says, it's not authoritative and shit like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it's because there are many different voices with many different stories to tell, both
Well,
in the Old Testament and the New Testament. In fact, I was
and if that's true, nobody can claim truth to it because it
that's
becomes
right.
subjective.
That's right. There's no obvious or objective truth to who God is that can come out of the Bible. That has to be the case. It's actually was well understood, and in fact, the idea that there was just one God is a very modern invention.
Yeah,
And the idea that
but everything prior to what? Yeah, I think Christianity was the original monotheism, but everything, all religions prior to that were polytheistic,
yeah, the
including the original Jewish traditions,
absolutely,
which is
and
ironically enough where the Christian God comes from in the first place.
yeah, and what's interesting is that this monotheism actually becomes a commonly held belief only in the Enlightenment. The singularity of God and that there is only one God was actually an invention of Islam. Another invention of Islam is the idea that God created a book for people to learn from that's perfect and right. Those are both Islamic inventions that big tent preachers in the Old West, the Second Great Awakening, right? They're the people that created this white nationalist Christianity, and it's very much modeled after Islam.
What were the
And
Puritans?
and that's the world we're living in, right? Where they're trying to use this idea to take over the United States and destroy our freedoms.
Right.
But there are long histories of, for example, the elimination, the resistance of slavery in Great Britain and the elimination of slavery in Great Britain were both driven by Christians.
Yeah, but the Bible was also the justification giving for it in the first place.
Sure. Sure, lots of people. I mean, like when you have multiple voices, multiple contradictory voices, all you have to do is pick and choose the ones that you want. Right?
Well, the Bible, so in the same sense of how you've kind of reinterpreted the religion, that's how Christians came to the conclusion that slavery was a bad thing. The Bible very clearly condones owning people as property. It never refutes it in any scripture at all. From the Old to the New Testament, there's more than a dozen examples. And the most egregious ones would be like Exodus 21 and Leviticus 25, 44 through 46.
Yep. I mean, even if people call the New Testament a retcon, I think that means the more egregious ones are where Paul tells slaves to be good servants to their masters.
Exactly. Love your master as you would the Lord.
So with that in mind, though, this sort of retconning is something that has been done constantly and throughout time, right? Just as soon as they found out.
What's the use of a religion outside of community? I mean, if community is the only thing it provides, or even a sense of hope, albeit false hope, wouldn't we do better to just be humanistic? Wouldn't that accomplish a more unison goal?
Yeah. So when I talk about reality, I study the social sciences. I think of institutional orders, these things that people come together to create, as real. And so, for example, professions. I think of professions as real. And having a group that runs, for example, accounting, and who can say, actually, generally accepted accounting procedures, we're going to change those to update things, right? Essentially retcon how accounting works, and they do that regularly. I find that very functional. right? Because everyone
Yeah,
can say,
I hear you.
okay,
That's how the scientific method works. I mean, everything's we build a basis of facts that lead to a theory, and then that theory can change based on new information. That's how everything in life works. With the exception of religion.
right. So it would seem to me that religion had always acted in the same way because you can go back to the Greeks, you could see professions being attached to religions. So they always had these high priests of the religion that were also the leaders of the profession that would be able to change the way things worked as times changed and things need to be updated.
Christianity seems to be tripping on itself with that one.
I would say that first and foremost, the problem starts with white Christianity in the United States and its exports. Right, that white dominance that you see, because you
Yeah.
don't see the same sort of evils in oppressed groups of people. Right, all the negative fascist beliefs are exactly the opposite in black churches, for example.
Yeah,
Like,
black churches tend to celebrate life rather
yep.
than mourn or rather than celebrate death. Whereas like the white religions like
Hmm.
Lutheran, Catholicism,
Hmm.
um, the white Southern Baptist,
Right.
these types of religions celebrate death. They celebrate the
Yes.
death of their savior. They
Yep.
celebrate the second coming of Christ and the apocalypse, which is what Christian dominionism is. The
Yeah.
desire, the Seven Mountain Mandate, and all that stuff is a desire to turn America into a Christian theocracy for the sole purpose of bringing about the apocalypse.
Right, well, 100%. And that is my full second point that there are black liberation theology churches that are doing good work, that Christianity can and has been used as a means of liberation. And that I think there's a fundamental difference between these fascist fundamentalists who have continued on sort of religion tradition of not making a change, but instead centralizing power, and those who are working together in a spiritual community to fight against that sort of thing.
Well,
And so,
I think that those voices are drowned. I hear your point, and
mhm.
I don't necessarily agree with the utilitarianism of it, but they're being drowned out. These Christian organizations that you say are doing good, they're not doing that great. Because if they were, Christian fascism wouldn't have a foothold in government right now. We
So
wouldn't see over 400 bills being written to attack 0.05% of the population. We
yeah,
wouldn't see an attack on women's rights if these good Christians were doing what they were supposed to be doing.
yeah, I agree that we need a concerted effort. Right now, Black Liberation Theology churches, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, these groups that are millions of people, they focus on things like providing housing and help for people who are homeless or PTSD, people that need help. Focus on providing food or food shelters. These little things around the edges, though, I think you're right. They don't get at the way the game is being played by the fascists. And really, we need to be aware that we need
Well, I mean,
counteraction on each of those seven mountains.
well, the counter what you're dealing with in that scenario is a difference in moral positioning.
Hmm.
Um, the group you're talking about is more uh, inclined to help what they perceive to be people in need versus the Christian Christo-fascist who thinks that that the world would be a better place if everybody just believed what they believed.
Oh, man. You're right. It's really hard to take any of those seven mountains when you don't believe anyone should take any of the seven mountains, right?
Right.
That's the
And to me,
difficulty.
the Seven Mountain Mandate, like when I started digging into that rabbit hole, I thought it was
Hmm.
a conspiracy theory. I didn't think it was real
Oh
because it
no.
sounds like a goddamn James Bond villain, like for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
It is 100% a James Bond villain. And I didn't believe it at first, but then, you start looking at how our education system has collapsed.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, our education system wasn't perfect from the get go.
No.
But the fact that that Republican and Christian conservatives keep viscerally attacking education is a definitive sign. Like these charter schools, these
Yeah.
Christian schools, and that to me is probably the darkest aspect of it. When you look at everything that they're trying to accomplish, an attack on education is the worst of it. Because without a proper education, you can measure a society based on how well educated the population is.
Yep.
If it's not educated, it's a collapsed and failed society.
And I mean, to me, the best world is where people choose to do the right thing. And I think we can get to that society if people were fully aware of the interconnectivity of everyone and they
Well, we got to
understood
play
that.
the long game the same way
Yeah.
that the Christian fascists have done. They've played that long game since Reagan. So 50
Mhm.
years they've been playing that game. We on the left don't have the patience for the long game. People aren't paying attention to the long game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they don't realize that, yeah, okay, for the time being, we might have to vote for Biden a second time because we don't have a better option. And he's a placeholder until we get other people into office that are better suited to affect the change that we want to see. It's a long game thing. And people with their lack of patience end up voting, protest voting for the independent party. And that's how Trump got in office in the first place.
That's correct.
And
And
Trump is just Trump was a shill for the Christo-fascists, like for
absolutely.
real. I
Yeah.
think when he announced his initial bid for presidency, it was a publicity stunt to get his name more recognition.
Hmm.
But then when Christians realized that they could use him to gain more access to more power within the government, they full backed him.
To
And that's
support that.
exactly what he did. He gave him federal courts. He gave them Supreme Court.
Hmm.
Like he made it easier for Christians to be bigots. Like that's what he did for them.
Steve Bannon says in the
Yeah.
book Fear Trump in the White House that he worked with the conservative Christians to bring Trump into place because they saw him as someone that could be like the brothers Gracchi, the people that essentially led to the fall of the Roman democracy, and that's what they wanted. So that is definitely true. You're right. We need to be like we're trying to get to LA and we're in Tallahassee, right? We need to be willing to get on the bus with people who are just getting as far as Louisiana and then try and get a little bit further. And finally to that. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but fundamentally, even with your aspect of religion, you're still, unless you're going to take into an interpretation of Christianity that was like first and second century,
Mhm.
your end game is still the second coming of Christ. Your end game is still the apocalypse. Your end game is still good people go to heaven, bad people go to hell. And what defines a good or a bad person within Christianity is really smudgy.
Oh no, it's not smudgy. It's just stupid for the Christian fascists. No, I'm universalist. I believe that Christ's salvation is for everyone, no matter who you are. It's just the part of you that is in love that is saved, and so that's it. When you're driving on that motorcycle, man, I have no doubt that you're in communion with that God in my faith system. That said,
Can I ask you something?
sure.
Do you believe in a hell? Because I know that hell is technically a newer concept.
Yeah.
So do you believe in a hell?
I do not. I believe that there are parts of us that are saved, and those are the ones that are in Christ, that is love. And then there's parts of us that are just not going to be remembered.
What?
Yeah. So it's called destructionism, right? The idea is that the part of us that isn't a loving being will not be remembered and brought into some better world.
So wouldn't that make you not you anymore?
Yes, absolutely. But to get to who you are, require going through the crap that is our lives, right?
Well,
So,
the idea being that the bad parts of you aren't who you are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that in the afterlife, you will be your truest self.
and to whatever degree that is what you want to be, right? And so what part of you that does not want to be loving would be, well, not existent anymore. So I think there's some part of all of us that was and has been loving, and that's my hope in Christ, right? And that's what I see in the stories originally is the idea that who you are, like your identity narrative, can be changed fundamentally if you believe in this narrative, the story of Christ, and make that the story of your life. And I've seen it change people's worlds. Like you said, it activates an addiction portion. Okay, now they're going to church every day of the week, but they're also, and the majority of Democrats are also Christian, and they're not the right wing fascist Christians. So you got some allies. You got some allies. They're just not loud assholes about it, and they tend not to.
Well,
So,
when it comes
what
down to
happened
it,
to the bad parts of you?
They
Does
would
that
cease
just
to
no
exist.
longer exist, or?
Well, yeah, and if you don't believe that you're going to be recreated, then you just believe you just stop existing entirely. So I'm just hopeful that the good parts get recreated.
It's a faith system it's built on the foundation of Christianity, but it's an entirely different faith-based system. It's not Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that, as you said, if you go back to the first, second century, there's been traditions of Christianity that do things like this.
Yeah, I mean, you could have celebrated Asherah, and it probably would have been the closest thing to what you've got going on. But the church
what I was
decided to
thinking.
wipe out that entire religion in the first place.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate that we deleted God's wife, right?
It would have made him seem a little bit more loving and less like a tyrannical fuckstick.
It's I just read a book. I know this is a little off topic, so before I start going off topic, I read a book called Debt by David Graeber, and it seems really clear that across cultures, people come together in cities, they create art, they create music, they create, society, and then they also create debt and power that takes over the people who have land, and then the patriarchs who have land rise up and kill off the people in the cities and install a patriarchal system. So I think that if we're going to save our society, we have to give up on this system of power that is making poor people indebted, because they will rebel. They'll vote Trump because they got nothing else. And
that's something I don't understand. Like, I'm really good with human psychology. Mostly, I'm not classically trained in anything, but understanding human behavior isn't typically that difficult, except when you look at people who vote for Trump. They're pissed off that the world isn't working the way they want it to. Like, they are poor, they are uneducated, they are struggling in life, and without recognizing the irony of it, they vote for the party that put them in that position in the first place.
Yeah.
I do not understand that psychology. Like, how do you get there? How do you go from, okay, my life sucks, this factory just closed down, my entire community is, in poverty because there's no real jobs available. And we've been, we're Arkansas. We've been run by Republicans for 50 plus years. And I'm pissed at Democrats.
And the answer is that the U.S. back in right after World War II, we redistributed the wealth. We had a really great system, and Republicans and Democrats were very similar, two wings of the same bird, they would say.
I mean, they kind of still are today. They're not, the Democrats don't want to change the status quo. The only difference now is that Republicans are so off the chain evangelical Christian that it's just like completely self-destructive.
Yeah. So back when this changed over, they realized that redistribution of wealth after World War II happened because, people were arguing over money. And when you argue over money, politics tends towards more egalitarianism. But when you argue about identity, now you can split people apart and get them to vote against their own best interest. And it would seem to me, having grown up conservative and changing my mind fundamentally, the thing that runs conservatives, they say it's hate. It's not hate. It's fear and
fear. Yeah. Well, I mean, fear leads to hate. That's the thing. It starts with fear of what they don't understand, fear of people they don't understand, which can turn to, I don't understand what you are, who you are. Therefore, part of my instinct wants to perceive you as a threat, and then they will make up reasons to hate those individuals.
And that's it. It's like there are bad people who deserve to be punished because I'm in a bad situation. I'm in a bad situation because the bad guys did something bad, so they should be punished. And I think that it's being beaten by patriarchal fathers that had no reason for doing it and coming up with justifications for being abused, that we get people who then say, oh, I will be a good one, and the others who aren't like me are the bad ones. I know because they weren't raised like me, and so they deserve punishment. And that's how you end up voting Trump.
The whole instinct for vengeance kind of thing is one of the things that I think human beings have to evolve beyond. It's so ridiculous that we have to have a sense for vengeance. You did me wrong, I want vengeance. That's all people like. Really, it's kind of a problem for human beings. We for whatever reason, the vast majority of us cannot rise above our emotional instinct.
I agree, and that is exactly why I support having a re-narration of Christianity, because I see people as fundamentally emotional, and that I see Christianity as that core myth, whether we like it or not, that underlies or taken for granted assumptions, at least in this nation. And so I think appealing to Christianity and that story is how you get to people's hearts and get them to move past that hate.
The problem I have with that over humanism is that it can be twisted.
Yeah.
Christianity can become the bad guy, which we've demonstrated already with the nationalism, with the Christian nationalism. Whereas humanism is so basic that I don't know how easy it would be to corrupt the concept. Let me see if I can grab my other device here. And for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, humanism is an outlook or system of thought attaching prime importance to human rather than divine or supernatural matters. Humanist beliefs stress the potential value and goodness of human beings, emphasize common human needs, and seek solely rational ways of solving human problems. That seems to me to be a better philosophy or system of thought than, even your version of Christianity, because ultimately somebody within your organization, somebody within your church could twist the image or the purpose or whatever. They could twist any aspect of what you're talking about and turn it into something toxic and bad.
Well, I agree that that's absolutely true. If you look at the first humanist revolution, the French Revolution, Jean-Paul Marat wrote just the most awful things that led directly to mass murder. And that was a humanist ideal. Now, that said, I agree with your idea on humanism in general. I'm pushing for my department, my area, to become the humanist area of study in entrepreneurship. But there's also something to be said for thinking about the Earth itself as having its own value outside of human value. So some post-humanist perspectives as well. That said, still, they tried having a church of humanism where people would follow the same rites and rituals, and it just didn't work out. They even put Jean-Paul Marat in the center of the church, a little picture or image of him instead of Jesus, and it just did not fly. I think still, and you know that there are these religious ecstatic experiences that bind communities. If we don't use it intentionally, if we don't draw on that human reality actively and intentionally, someone else is going to exploit it first.
I get it that there are people who are capable of doing just bad things for the sake of doing bad things. But I think it was Christopher Hitchens who said it best. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit here. Good people who do good things for good reasons, bad people who do bad things for bad reasons. But if you want to get a good person to do bad things, give them religion.
So I'm with you to
When we
the
look,
point.
like I
Mhm.
said earlier, when you weigh what you believe on a scale versus what Christianity has been its entire existence, it's not even close. What Christianity has always been is a colonizing force that genocided hundreds of thousands of native tribes all over the world, that tortured children, that just did the most horrific shit. It's never been a force for good in the way that you describe your version of it.
At the same time, communism and capitalism do the same things. I think ideologies in
Political
general can get
philosophies are
us.
political philosophies are a whole separate deal unto themselves. They are in every form or version capable of being corrupt.
Right. So the general.
But I don't have capitalists. Well, I guess I do. I do have
Right.
capitalists writing laws that are fucking me over. I
Yep.
am kidney failure on dialysis, and I'm on the verge
That's
of
right
being
here.
homeless again. I just got this apartment in February through a homeless program that's designed for people who can still work. They
Okay.
didn't inform me of that.
Mm.
So after 4 months, they pay my rent for 4 months, and then I'm responsible for 33% of it. My disability is $588 a month, minus 100 for my cell phone and 100 for internet, leaves me with $388 a month. I'm responsible for $540 of my rent next month.
Hmm.
And then after 6 or 7 months, it goes up to 62%. And by the end of this year, they want me completely paying my own rent on my own.
If it's not too much, what state are you in?
Arizona.
Okay. I employ people who were previously unemployable, felony backgrounds, and so on. I help them get them expunged. I give them a Tesla and let them drive it to make money and earn the car themselves. And I have been working with folks in Albuquerque who were homeless before I started working with them, and so I'm gonna follow you here. And then if I send you a message, there's a lot of information, a lot of paths that these folks have run down, and perhaps we can figure out
Well, I
which
was a
groups to link
Lyft
you up with.
driver until this year. They
Okay.
have a background service called Checker.
Yes.
And they approved me to drive in 2020, 2021, 2022. And this year they decided that a few misdemeanor traffic violations from 2010 was enough reason to fire me.
Yeah, we can.
And I can't get a hold of anybody. I can't get a hold of a
Yep.
single real person at Lyft anymore. They got rid of all of their customer service personnel, probably in an effort to keep their
Optimize
shareholders
profits.
happy and keep their
Yeah.
profits up.
Yeah.
So
Hey,
I'm fucked on.
Ethan.
I mean, I can still work for like Waymo, which is like
Hmm.
does medical transportation and shit. And DoorDash doesn't make much money, but it's something I could do to supplement income. I just don't have any transportation.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, you were saying?
Oh, I was gonna say, would you be able to Uber drive? Because Lyft
Uber
wouldn't
fired me.
hire me because I had a suspended license in California. But Uber hired me on no problem.
Uber fired me for not wearing a mask, even though at the time, in order to log into the app, you had to take a picture of yourself with a mask on. They still fired me for not wearing a fucking mask, even when I was wearing a fucking mask. I'm dialysis kidney failure. I had to wear a mask during the fucking pandemic. I didn't want to catch that nasty shit.
Yep.
It would have killed me.
Well, one thing that we may be able to benefit from is having worked with and gotten so many people to drive so many hours, we're up to diamond status, which is all you have to do is work 60 hours a week for 3 months, and then you can talk to someone on the phone. And so perhaps we can,
Say what again? 60 hours a week?
yeah, essentially 60 hours a week on app for about 3 months, and you
I
earn,
couldn't do that.
yeah, well, we did. And so I've got access to an actual human being I can just call and talk to at Uber.
Oh,
Yeah, which is generally not how it works, right? So yeah, I gave you a follow there. If you send me a message, I'll respond to that with the information that I
Yeah,
have.
I followed you back.
Cool, man. All right. Hey, I thought that was a great conversation. I respect where you're
It
coming from.
was
I understand
definitely
what you're
more
saying.
informative than most of my Christian conversations. Absolutely. And I don't have a personal bone to pick with your religion. Maybe philosophically, but definitely not from any legitimate position. I mean, I don't really like philosophy too much because it doesn't get us anywhere. But um, legit, your version of Christianity kept to yourself and practiced on your own without the negative connotations that tend to come with Christianity. Yeah, your faith is fine. I don't have a bone to pick with that at all.
Yeah, the only time I'd want to share the way I think of things is like yourself, you're asking for a conversation about it,
Right.
or someone says, I'm really suffering here. Well, I know, like you said, activates the addiction portion of the mind. Well, if somebody's drug addicted and they could be better off not addicted, well, faith can be helpful as long as it's not, as you pointed out, so easily twisted by so many people.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate your time, and yeah, send me some info.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time. You have yourself a wonderful day. How's it going, Brittany and Eli? You guys bored yet?
I'm doing my makeup. I'm getting ready for work right now. I really only got it. I can't even talk right now. I really got on just to ask you a few questions
Sure.
because I was in a debate and the host started adding more and more people, and it was like four against me, and I didn't know what to say.
No, that's
Um,
right. Learning how to debate and argue a case, it takes time. You're not going to get it right
the
every time. Even I fuck up.
so the original question was for me, hypothetically, would I go into a church to support my friends and family? And I said, no, I can support them in other ways. I can talk to them
True.
on the phone. Like my mom is Seventh Day Adventist. She talks to me all the time about how
I,
she
I
went to
I've
church and
actually
stuff.
I've been in that exact situation. My brother was in the military longer than than I was, and on a couple of separate occasions, he had military things that involved a church, and I went. I wasn't happy about it, but I supported my brother in that initially. So I understand. Yeah, I mean it's going to be subjective to each person. I mean, if you're uncomfortable
Right.
going to a church based on your lived experience, then fine. But nobody should be judging you for that.
Right. And they were like, well, why wouldn't you go to a church? And I was like, well, am I singing the songs? Am I listening to the sermon? Or am I just there? And they were like, well, you would have to participate. And I was like, well, if that's the case, then no, because then I would feel like a
If I would have had to
hypocrite.
have participated, I wouldn't have gone either. I sat in a pew and I supported my brother, but I didn't participate in their Magic the Gathering scenario.
Yeah, and then they all just started, why would you call him a hypocrite? And I was like, I didn't say anything about him. I was talking about myself. And I was like, if that's what he wants to do and it makes him happy, then that's fine. But I'm not going to do that.
Right.
But whatchamacallit, what I thought about it, I thought it was funny because y'all started off as like a theist debate, and then it just left really quick, and then it went into the foundations of his religion or whatever form of it was. But I thought it was like pretty entertaining though. But I think that the original topic left very quick in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, when you find common ground to about a given topic or subject, there's going to be more agreement than disagreement, and a debate is specifically about disagreement. So, I mean, it was a fun conversation, but it wasn't a debate. I mean, initially, I guess it started out that way, but the way he was using God colloquially as a general experience that people have, I disagree with that. Obviously, being a naturalist, I think the things that quote unquote people would call spiritual are nothing more than chemical and electrical signals in the brain. That's what emotion is. It's how we experience it. It's not mystical or
Well,
supernatural.
I thought his point originally didn't point to a God at all. Um, I don't even know what he was. His point didn't
He
really
was
make sense.
advocating for spiritualism, more or less. I mean, if you really broke the argument down to the core, people's daily experience can be spiritual. I guess was what he was getting at, and that spiritual feeling could be philosophically, it could be a god, I guess, but there's a lot of problems with that, obviously, because of the different types of religions and everything else. He did make the statement that all of the world religions are wrong, that their definition of God is lacking. I mean, was his position. Because they've decided that their God hates this, their God hates that, their God hates this. Well, that's not how he defines God. He defines God as something that doesn't hate anything. His God doesn't look down on sin or sinners. With the sacrifice of Jesus in his denomination, you're ultimately forgiven already. And I've heard of a few denominations of Christianity that celebrate this way, or worship or practice their religion this way, where they believe that Jesus' sacrifice ultimately forgives everybody of sin. You don't have to ask for it, you're automatically absolved of sin. And that he believed that everybody has a place in heaven and nobody is actually going to go to hell. So he has a very, very reinterpreted version of Christianity, but provided he's not using it as a bludgeon to hurt other people, I have no problem with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I never heard of his version before.
I've heard of a couple of different denominations that are similar.
And I don't know how he came to that religion. I don't know if he's getting what he's saying from the Bible or what version of the Bible, but it seems pretty contradictory of
Yeah, it is. It is.
what the Bible
It
actually
flies
says.
directly in the face of what Scripture says.
That's why I was confused. I don't know if this guy I just think the guy isn't really Christian. He was just trying to make some justifiable version of it for himself.
Well, we're going to bring another guest on and see if we can get into a debate.
Okay. I don't know how to get off.
No, you're all right. Simaga. How's it going?
Yeah, good. Hey, it's awesome. I like the way you argue.
Thank you.
You, yeah, yeah. You have good arguments, and I'm not. I can't really debate you because I do agree generally with everything you say, but I'd like to just throw like some idea into the air and just to tackle it. I mean, what is actually the point of religion? What if God actually exists? If we could provide evidence that the God exists, what would be different? I just don't understand why. Every other life I see, it's about religion, and this is there's so many other important things happening in this world at the moment. And when we're getting sidetracked with gender issues and religious debates, so I would like to know, why are we talking about this? Because I don't see the point, other than that emotional benefit. I can see that, and I'm jealous of those people who can use the emotional benefit.
I think
the point is control. That's the point. Do you live in the U.S.?
No, not at the moment.
So here in the U.S., we have a Christian ideology known as Christian dominionism. The sole purpose of this ideology is to turn America into a Christian theocracy for the sole purpose of bringing about the apocalypse. They think and believe that if they turn America into a theocracy, that will spark a prophecy that will bring about the end times. That is their goal. That is what they want to accomplish. And ironically enough, if they managed to pull it off, and they did manage to turn America into a Christian theocracy, obviously Jesus would not come back. Like the whole story of Jesus coming back isn't a thing. It's not real. And they would cause the apocalypse themselves. They would probably start some kind of nuclear war with like Muslims or some goofy shit.
Okay.
Because
who is they?
They are unhappy in this world. They are afraid of this world. They are afraid of the things they don't understand about the nature of reality. And that fear clouds their intellectual and logical judgment.
Okay, you're talking about who, like people who are prone to Christianity, to beliefs in general, I guess.
Well, just general
community.
General Christian, general Muslim, general religious beliefs that inherently other people. Like, you aren't in my tribe. You don't believe what I believe. I'm a Lutheran, you're a Baptist, or I'm a First Baptist, you're a Second Baptist, or I'm a Mormon, you're a Catholic. Religion tribalizes people based on their subjective worldviews. You'll have somebody who's going to a Lutheran church and doesn't agree with what the preacher is saying, so he switches churches, goes to a different Lutheran church, doesn't agree with what that preacher's saying, so then he goes to a Baptist church and he agrees with what the Baptist minister says. So largely Christianity is very subjective in regards to how people choose to interpret.
I agree. But why are they going to churches at all? Why not go to a university lecture instead?
Well, community for starters, and the Christian right in the United States has demonized education to the point where they are trying to tear it down from the roots. Like, for real, they are literally decimating education in this country. Both K through 12 and higher education is taking a beating right now in the United States because of the Christian right. One of the things that Christian evangelicals learned is that the more educated you are, the less likely you are to be a Christian or to believe in a God. And because of that, they are trying to do away with education so that they can become the authority that everybody believes in.
Yeah, I agree. I think that does make sense. I think there are mainly two reasons why people tend to drift towards religion, and I think this is like one of them is that they want to know, they want to have an answer to where we come from, how the universe began, and all these big questions. And then the other one is where do we go to, and is there a purpose, and what's the
it comes down to the fear of what we don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't understand how this can be an argument, because most of these arguments are not solved by, let's say, evidence of a God. Like, even if there is a God, how would that help answer those questions? Like, it doesn't answer the question where we come from. I mean, maybe we were made by God, but then who made God?
Like I said,
how did God get indoctrinated? Which gods does God believe in? It's just a complication. It's not an answer. Like I said, I don't understand that.
Their emotional attachment to this overrides their logical brain. They are not thinking in terms of 1 + 1 = 2. They are thinking in terms of, I don't understand it, therefore I either hate it or resent it. I don't like it. I want to make sense of the world. I want the world to make sense to me. Therefore, it's only man, woman, black, white, right, wrong, heaven, hell. They binary everything in their worldview. It's this or this, never anything in between. And honestly, that's not how life works. But like I said, it's an emotional attachment that is forcing them to override their logical brain.
Yeah. But Ethan, if this actually works so well, and it seems to work really well, so many people fall for this, then isn't it? It's not unsurprising that we get fooled so easily by media and by politics, like for example with the lockdowns, with completely stupid arguments. We were made to believe this and that, and the PCR test here and there, and no basic logic could, even if you can bring up a very strong simple mathematical argument, it's not believed because people don't want to believe, just like they don't want to believe that God doesn't provide an answer to their questions. It's so obvious that it doesn't.
We know what happened in the United States when people decided not to listen to the lockdown mandate. People in churches died. A lot of people in churches died. They were some of the first people to die because they refused to go into lockdown. You can't make us not go to church. That was their whole argument. Their freedom of religion, blah, blah, blah. And when people were arrested for violating city ordinances, the fucking right-wing media went apeshit with it and said, this is the Antichrist. This is Christians being persecuted. And it's like, no, dude, we're trying to get you to stop spreading a fucking disease that's obviously killing you. Like, they lost a lot of religious leaders in 2021, man, a lot. It was
that's
there
really
was like a
strange.
religious leader in the news dying from COVID every week. It was crazy. And they didn't recognize it. They didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, that just puzzles me because in Europe there was nothing like that, and in Australia and many other countries. I don't know why America had so many
lockdowns. I know, like New Zealand went on full lockdown.
Yes, I mean, New Zealand was really bad, and the southern part of Australia. But COVID was having no impact on anyone there. I remember 15 people died under the age of 50.
The reason COVID didn't have an impact is because they locked down.
No, this was before the lockdowns. And the northern parts didn't lock down much at all, like Brisbane and northern parts of Australia.
In the US, we lost 1 million people to COVID.
Yeah, there must be something happening. I don't know what happened. But, also in Europe, if you look at the European statistics, look at the overall, like the total mortality rates per week, there's a very good database. It didn't show anything for ages under 46 at all, like until the vaccines were introduced. And that's when it started to go up a bit. But the first year of COVID, there was no evidence.
The argument that it's only going to kill elderly people still isn't a good argument.
Well, yes, but like most of the people who died were over 85 years old, and they would have died one way or the other. And I'm not saying there was nothing and the COVID didn't exist, but the reaction, you probably killed way more people through the lockdowns and other measures, and also the hospitals were empty. Like in Germany, they had to be bailed out.
I don't think New Zealand had more deaths because they locked down.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense at all.
Well, the lockdowns killed a lot of people. I mean, that's pretty
and our hospitals were so backed up because of this shit that people were dying from heart attacks who could have otherwise been saved had we not been dealing with COVID. We had a lot of issues during that period of time. I mean, the death toll because of COVID is larger than 1 million. 1 million is just the number of people that died directly from COVID, whether that was based on comorbidity or otherwise.
But
there
1 million
was a lot of people in the United States that died from things like heart attacks and strokes and other stuff because they couldn't get medical treatment.
Yeah,
because the hospitals were full.
Okay, if the hospitals in America were full, then there must have been something wrong. But like I said, in Europe and in Australia, I mean, there are always some hospitals that are full for whatever reason, but on average, most hospitals were not fuller than normally, and many were totally empty, actually.
Could be the density of population. I mean, here in the United States, COVID started in New York City.
Yeah. Well,
you're looking at several, like tens of millions of people. Actually, I'm not sure what the population of New York City is. Hold on a second.
Well, it's probably around
7 million. I might be tripping now.
But 1 million people.
It's 8.4 million people live in New York City. So 8.4 million people live in New York City. That's a lot of people. That's more. That's greater than the population of New Zealand, isn't it?
Maybe, but this is not much more than the people who live in Sydney.
5.12 million.
That's a quite small number,
New Zealand
actually.
has 5.1 million people. New York has 8 point some odd many million people. So yeah, New York City has a greater population than most countries.
Yeah, but there's also the big cities like Shanghai that have like 25 million people. I mean, that's a big city.
Well, they also
Like in,
wear masks constantly. Here in the
yeah,
U.S., we were struggling to get people to wear a fucking mask.
yeah, but or maybe this is now a good example. Like, let's see how that works. You know that basically what defines COVID, the diagnosis, like you're being diagnosed as a case of COVID, is that there's only one requirement, and that's a positive PCR test, right? There's
Well,
no other way to diagnose COVID. That's all that's needed. There's no, you don't have to have any
let's put it
symptoms.
this way. I'm going to admit that science is not exact and that mistakes can be made based on a lack of information. I'm going to own that because that's what science is. It's learning what we can when we have the available information.
Yeah,
Mhm.
trial and error.
But having a naysayer attitude towards it fucks us the next time a bug shows up that might be more serious than COVID. Because
Yeah.
then there's going to be a bunch of people who just don't believe in the science at all.
Yeah, you know what I'm really scared of is if this happens again, and like you say, if this was a serious disease next time, and we are suppressing the discussion again, and we are censoring doctors, and we're censoring nurses, and we're censoring all the information that's actually, then we are in real trouble, because that's exactly
Well,
what
it's not
happened.
just a matter of censoring doctors. It's people who naysay, people who look at science and say, well, that's not reliable because it fucked up, because it makes mistakes.
Well,
People got to stop. Go on. People got to stop attacking science. We got to recognize it for what it is.
I agree. Well, you know, but you know, science relies on a discussion. You can't have one-sided science. That's unscientific. You know that the scientific method.
Yeah, you've got to have more discussion.
You have to have a discussion, and you have to have the ability to speak out and against everyone. Otherwise, there would be no change ever happening in science.
To a limit.
Sorry?
To a limit.
What's the limit?
Well, let's see.
That's dangerous to say, actually.
Let's imagine for a second that 97% of scientists agree on climate change. And you've got one creationist, Peckerwood at Liberty University, talking shit about how the Earth is 6,000 years old and flat. Should we take him seriously?
Yes. In science, you should take everyone seriously.
No. Of course. We have proven that the Earth is a globe.
Okay, give me 1 minute.
That the Earth is older than 6,000 years. We no longer have to take that person seriously.
Mm-hmm. Like, just imagine what happened when Einstein came up with his theory of special relativity.
His original theory of relativity didn't fly, or special relativity didn't fly. His later theory of relativity does fly, but it's based in mathematics.
Well, you know, the special relativity is much easier to understand than the later one. So if you remember what happened in 1905, 99.99999% of all scientists were against him. We had a completely different opinion. And he was literally the only person amongst a million people, probably.
Right, but his idea was novel and new. It wasn't something that we had already learned beyond.
Not actually. It's not completely new. The idea was already around.
His theory of relativity was relatively new. It was pretty new.
Lorentz was actually had already the.
Let me finish.
Okay.
Relatively new, but we know the Earth is a globe. We have literal pictures of it. We know the Earth is older than 6,000 years. These are things that we've established as fact.
But careful. If there is no fact in science.
Facts exist. You can observe fact. Lava is hot. That's a fact. Lions are predators. That's a fact. So lions aren't predators.
No, the scientific method is exactly the opposite. There is no such. There's not one statement you can make in science that
stating
is
that something is a
reliable.
fact is not the same as stating that it is an absolute. Scientists tend to avoid absolutes. They will say the available evidence points to this. That's a fact, but not an absolute fact. It's subject to change. You're misinterpreting what's being said here.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
the Earth is a globe. We've proven that to be a fact. The Earth is
Look, I don't
older.
like the word fact. No
I
scientist
don't
would
care if
use
you
the
don't
word
like the
fact.
word fact. That's completely irrelevant. What you like and dislike is irrelevant in this conversation. It's a
Yeah.
fact. The Earth is a fucking globe. That is a fact. Unless you can try to refute it.
Well, if you mean by fact it's irrefutable, then this is not what a scientist
I
would
didn't
say.
say it was irrefutable. I said it's just a fact. I just told you
Well,
how
so
scientists use the word fact is not an absolute. Everything is
scientists
subject
don't
to
use the
change
word
based.
fact at all.
You're not listening. You're talking.
Hmm.
Everything is subject to change based on new information.
Hmm.
A fact or a theory, a scientific theory, is the best accolade any given idea can achieve in science. A
Hmm.
theory is based on a series of facts. All of these,
No.
yes, I will read you the fucking definition right now and prove you wrong.
Okay.
All of these are subject to change based on new information.
Now, how can it be a fact if it is subject to change?
Because you're misunderstanding the word fact.
Well, let's just don't use the word fact because I don't know what you mean by it. Like, how can it be irrefutable but changeable at the same
Is the
time?
Earth any other shape than a globe?
I suspect not. I think not. But
Okay.
I wouldn't
So then
say
when
it's a
we make
fact.
the statement that the Earth is a globe, that is a factual statement.
I think it's a theory. The strongest thing we have in science is a theory.
Definition of a scientific theory. A theory is a carefully thought out explanation for observations of the natural world that has been constructed using the scientific method and which brings together many facts and hypotheses. Definition of the word theory.
Well, you have to look up the definition of facts then. What is a fact?
Definition of the word fact. A thing
A
that
fact?
is known to be proven to be true.
Yeah, okay. So how do you prove something to be true?
Observation and experimentation.
Exactly. And these are things that can change. Like you said, I mean, you're absolutely right with 99% of what you're saying.
Stop. What's that noise in the background?
It's not me.
Okay. When I state that the Earth is older than 6,000 years, that's a stone cold fact.
No, well, I don't know what you mean by fact. Can we not just use a different word?
I'm going to repeat it one more time based on the definition you made me look up.
Yeah, it's observation. That's a scientific principle. It's a theory. It's the same as a theory. Can we not just call it a theory?
And you misunderstood the word theory.
No, the theory is exactly, you just said it. It's the same as the observation of a repeated observation of a claim makes it a scientific
a
theory.
Thing that is known or proven to be true. That is the definition of the word fact.
Yeah, and you said that what makes it true is the observation.
Earth being round is a fact. Lions are predators. That's a fact. If you stick your hand in fire, it will burn you. That is a fact. Your body requires nutrients to survive, so you have to eat food and drink water. That is a fact.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I largely agree, so I don't think we need to...
A ball is round. That's a fact.
Yeah. How did we end up in this, actually?
I'm not really sure. Your definition of you wanting to take all quote unquote scientific claims seriously. So when I brought up the subject matter of the Earth, like if 97% of all scientists think that we know the Earth is round and we know the Earth is 4 billion years old, and some Christian creationist decides to spew about how he thinks the Earth is flat and 6,000 years old, should we take him seriously? The answer is no.
No, look, I think you have to listen to the arguments. You don't have to be afraid of those arguments. I mean,
I don't
you don't have to
his argument because we've already disproven his argument like 500 years ago.
Yeah, but if things...
Stop. There comes a point where this gets ridiculous. Scientists fending off things we've already disproven is a huge waste of energy.
Yeah, but
Now,
like I'm just saying,
if
you don't have to listen, but you don't.
If a scientist if a scientist makes a novel discovery and brings it to the scientific community, and they reject his premise, the scientific method takes over for that, and it becomes a peer review study case where other scientists in similar fields are going to repeat his experiments, repeat his observations, and either vilify or verify his findings.
Mhm.
The scientific
But that,
method self-corrects.
yes, but how can it self-correct if you're censoring people?
You fix bad science with better science.
Yeah, but you need to be able to listen to new inputs and also
Right.
old inputs.
New.
Right?
New. The key word there is new.
Not
Somebody
necessarily,
saying that the
actually.
Earth is flat in 6,000 years isn't new.
Nah, like it could well be an old argument, really. Like, for example, the free will discussion or the I mean, Aristotle already had good arguments, and there's a good there are lots of examples from the Greek philosophers that are still valid and haven't been proven
There
or
are Christians
disproven.
in the United States that think Joe Biden is a lizard person trying to eat people's brains. Should we take them seriously?
Well, you should at least don't censor them. There's no need to censor people.
I didn't say anything about censoring anybody. I said, should we take them seriously?
Okay. Look, I don't know. All I'm saying is we need to. Censoring is a very dangerous thing. That's how.
I never said
how we
anything
end
about
up
censoring anybody. I never said that.
Okay, then we agree. Okay, I don't care if you take
They can
people
say whatever
seriously.
crazy batshit things they want to say.
Yeah,
but I am under no obligation to take them seriously.
Yeah, okay. But don't censor them. As long as you don't censor, that's the main thing. Because in the moment, that's what I said initially worried me in the COVID situation, because governments were censoring scientists, doctors, nurses, like everybody who spoke out and had a different opinion got censored, and that's not the way.
Ivermectin is bullshit. And the scientists and doctors you're talking about all have backgrounds, and they're all crazy wackaloon people. In fact, one of those doctor scientists, who has been largely discredited by her field, and I do believe lost her fucking license, is one of the people in the United States that think lizard people are real. She was a certified fucking
there was
insane
also
person.
There was also that one African guy that was saying a whole bunch of nonsense.
But I'm not talking about what they believe, how crazy people are. And yes, it's a bit hard to believe people who make other crazy claims. But it's still important. Look, if some popped on Earth and just uttered the E equals mc square, like Einstein's equation, it doesn't matter who utters those words.
There's a difference between coming up with a genuine scientific hypothesis and being a wackaloon. There is a huge difference between those two things. When Einstein came up with the theory of relativity, he was trying to explain observational phenomena in nature. When a doctor, a fucking pseudo doctor, gets on national television and says crazy lizard people bullshit, why would anybody take that seriously?
Okay.
These are not the same
I understand.
thing.
That's an emotional. Yeah, I understand. But there are plenty of other people who didn't say any crazy lizard things.
Your freedom of speech, the freedom of being censored, only comes when you aren't risking other people's lives, safety, and well-being. If you are using speech that would otherwise cause people harm, that is not free speech.
But how do you know that it's not the other way around? How do you know that you are the one on the right side of the discussion? That's the fundamental problem.
I never said right or wrong.
Well, you're saying that
patently, obviously causing pain and suffering.
It could also be that if you're actually not listening to them, you're causing more pain and suffering.
Let's imagine the 10-year-old that didn't get sick from COVID, but still carried COVID. They can still carry it and be asymptomatic, not suffer any of the complications of COVID, and they gave that to their grandparents. Now their grandparents are dead because that kid didn't know any better. This is what happens when we spread misinformation, when we spread lies. It does
Yeah.
stuff like that.
But shouldn't we also listen to those people who say, well, look, I'm 89 years old. I rather die with my grandchildren around than without them. You know, that's also been censored, this type of
Good, and
opinion.
that's a subjective thing. It's not, you can't run an entire society based off of the desire of an 87-year-old person.
No, but individual freedom matters. You know, if people can't decide how they want to die, how they, you know,
No,
let me
you
just
can't
give
decide
you
in this
one
country.
example.
You cannot decide in this
Wait,
country how you
that
want to die. No, you
wait,
can't.
that
Stop.
freedom,
Stop. Stop.
extends.
You cannot decide in the United States how you want to die. The United States legal system doesn't let you. There are a few things that you can do for self-euthanasia. Like, I am kidney failure and I'm on dialysis. I could refuse dialysis. I can self-euthanize and nobody can legally challenge me on that because all I'm doing is denying medical care.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large in the United States, we do not have legal euthanasia.
Yeah, I think it might
Wait,
change
Ethan.
actually. This is an
Even if
interesting
we
topic.
did, you don't get to dictate how a society functions and tries to save itself from a fucking pandemic because an 87-year-old person wants to die next to their loved ones. That's just
Yeah.
illogical.
Yeah. Wait, Ethan.
Ethan, can I give you just
Yes,
one simple?
I'm sorry. No, wait. Sigma, hold on. Or Samaga, hold on. Eli, what's up?
Okay.
Yeah. So the whole thing about, if I heard you right, the whole thing about people being able to decide how they want to die, that's not a freedom that's given if it also affects other people. So, like, the people not wanting to wear masks and wanting to catch the disease and they don't care, that single-handedly affects other people. That's why it's not a freedom given. It's not the same thing as you wanting to deny medicine or do that in the third. That is directly affecting other people without their consent. So that's a very dumb argument.
Yeah,
We live
in a society where people have to get along. We have to be willing to take care of each other. If we're not willing to do that, then we're a failed society.
Ethan, can I give you an example, a very simple logical argument that really questions the whole COVID situation? It all hinges on the PCR test. You know, if I can show that the PCR test produces more false positives than you know, like more false positives than even COVID cases actually were claimed, would that be like something to worry about?
So here's the thing. I don't know you. I don't know what your. Hold on. Let me finish. I don't know what your certifications are. I don't know what education you've received. I don't know if you have a degree in virology. I don't know if you understand this. But do you know who I do know has those things? Doctors, scientists. And when they come out and they say something, I'm going to listen to them because of continued reliability. My cell phone. Stop.
You just said you only listen to some of them.
My cell phone works because of the continued reliability of science, not the hearsay nonsense people pick up on their Facebook posts.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, you do believe in a mathematical equation, right? A simple division that anyone can do, like anyone over 12 could do the calculation.
If it's going to end up with you diminishing the ones that died, then I don't want to hear it.
No, it doesn't diminish, and it doesn't. I'm not saying not as many people died at all. I'm not saying the COVID virus doesn't exist. All I'm saying is that the PCR test produces a huge number of false positives, and that's based on the official data. Like, you just, you know, if you look up the accuracy of the test and you do the calculation.
Somebody in the comments just said a false positive is better than a false negative. So. It's just being, I mean, if you get a false positive, you're just being cautious.
When, you know, my claim is, it seems if you do the calculation, you get more false positives than all COVID cases in Australia combined. Same thing for Austria or Germany and other countries. That basically means, in theory, that there could not be a single true positive. I mean, there are probably true positives, but the number of false positives can, in theory, be so big that it's basically a useless test. And I'm not the only one claiming that. And it's a simple calculation anyone can really do. I mean, there have been court cases about this, and they won the court case. It's legally, even Pfizer themselves they just have postponed that decision about whether it's suitable or not for years. They haven't even, I think they finally decided it's not suitable because of two problems. One is the number of false positives is so high, it's at least 1%, basically. If you do 100 tests, 1 in 100 tests at least, this is an optimistic value. Most tests are less accurate. 1 in 100 cases will always be a COVID case. That is one fundamental problem. And this is, in Australia never had more than 1% of all tests being COVID. We didn't even reach the number of expected errors. And the same in Austria. They tested 100 million times, last time I checked. So out of 100 million tests, you expect 1 million false positives.
So what?
And the number of COVID cases hasn't even reached 1 million. It's barely reached.
Wait. Stop. You understand that science isn't perfect, right?
Yes, I understand that more than many.
I'm sorry, but 1 million false positives out of 100 million ain't shit. And it's hardly negligible.
If this is all the COVID cases we have, it's like huge.
It's not all the COVID cases you had. Australia got hit pretty hard by COVID.
They did never exceed the number of expected false positives. They tested at least 50 million times, and you expect 500,000 people to be COVID cases, just wrong COVID cases because of the error of the tests.
COVID death toll of Australia.
They never reached it's a ridiculous small number of people who died. Like actually in the first year you had 15 people who died under the age of 50, and there was later you had half a year where not one person died. We really had an epidemic of PCR test results. That was the only thing. And I'm not saying I'm just saying the PCR test is not suitable
it's
for
not
this.
Perfect. Yes, we've already.
No, it's not perfect. It's not at all. It's complete. It's not even a test. Initially, it's a matter.
One more time. I'm going to say this one more time. You are misunderstanding the math here. If 1%, if 1% of COVID tests are false positives, that doesn't mean shit. In a population of 500,000 people, that's 5,000 fucking people.
Mm-hmm.
So what? 5,000 bad tests ain't shit. It's a negligible number.
No, it's not it's more than all the COVID cases combined.
Stop. If 1% of COVID tests are false positives, that means 99% of them are accurate. Sorry, your math ain't math.
That doesn't mean it. No, that's actually wrong.
Stop. You are diving into some conspiracy theory wacky shit.
No, it's not a conspiracy theory.
It is a conspiracy theory.
You're saying that now. I'm just saying you can do anyone can do the calculation. It's that
you're not doing an accurate calculation.
Why not? I mean, it's look up the number you're looking for is called specificity.
You stop talking. You said 1% were false positives, which means 99% are accurate, which means the system works. It doesn't work perfectly, but it works.
No, it doesn't mean 99% is accurate. That's not
correct. Yes, it does.
No, this is a different number.
You are either accurate or you are inaccurate. There is no other option there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a little bit more complicated, and then I understand.
You are making it more complicated because you're trying to buy into something to make excuses for I don't know what.
No, Well,
Yeah.
I do admit it's not easy. This is a difficult. You can easily fool
It
very
is not
intelligent people with
difficult to
this.
understand. This is very simple. If 1% of COVID tests produce a false positive, that means that the other 99% are accurate. What the fuck
But
is hard to
no,
understand about that?
that is not true, Ethan. Sorry. That means the other 99% are not false positive. That's all it means. Accuracy is a completely different term. You have two values. If you
So what other
measure
option is
the
there?
accuracy of a diagnostic test, you need two numbers.
What other option is there besides
There are four options. You have false positive, you have true positives, you have false negatives, and you have false positives. You have four of those. And to describe those four,
were most of the tests accurate?
well, you have two numbers. One defines the false positives,
not what I
one
asked.
defines the false
Were
negatives.
most of the tests accurate?
Most of the tests accurate. They all have more or less the same accuracy between 90. It's not accuracy. It's if you talk about false positives, you have the number. The name is specificity. That's the parameter.
You are picking the smallest number and bitching about it.
Well, the problem is the number of COVID cases is small. It is in the order of 1%.
Stop. We're going to move on because this is nothing to fucking do with my topic.
Okay, let's forget. Let me just completely different, not mathematical argument.
You are spreading your version of misinformation on my channel, and I'm not okay with it.
Now, look, okay, let's change the topic from to a different aspect of the PCR test.
We're not. Because my debate topic has nothing to do with COVID. I don't give a shit.
Okay. Well, I thought you're a science guy. You like logical arguments.
Guy, and I trust scientists, not some random guy on the internet.
Yeah, but how can I make myself not a random guy on the internet?
Go study fucking virology.
Well, what if I have studied fucking biology?
You haven't.
What would I mean? I can only say words, and you can believe them or not believe them, and you're talking all the time to random.
Here's how scientific education works. You go to a classroom, they teach you about the theory of different things. Then you go to a lab, and you get to verify hands-on experience what you were taught in the classroom. That's how scientific education works.
Well, would you believe me more if I have a PhD?
Stop. Yes, I would, but stop. Mark Twain said it best. It is better to be thoughtful than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. Don't talk about things that you don't have an education in. I'm not a fucking rocket scientist, so I'm not going to try to describe to you what fuel mixture makes for the best thrust. I have no fucking clue. I don't talk about things I don't know anything about. I'm not a virologist. Yeah. I trust virologists based on their continued reliability. How the United States handled COVID was fucked from the get-go, which is why we had such a large death toll. How other countries responded to COVID immediately and effectively reduced their fucking death tolls. So I don't want to hear your conspiracy theory, 1% this or that or the other. I'm not here for it. I trust actual scientists. And I don't trust just one scientist. I trust the body of scientists because it comes from a place of peer review and study, not just somebody making an assertion.
But what if that body is censored?
I hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Fuck. Had nothing to do with the God existing. Absolutely nothing. We're going to restart my live. We're going to kick the algorithm in the ass a little bit and restart the live. So I invite everybody to come back. Give me like 15 seconds to get the live restarted. And I hope to see you all here.
All right. I'll request when you start it.
All right. See you in a minute.